John, Anik, and Kenny Florian podcast. John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love him. I can't get enough of him.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, John, Anik, and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang. Oh, done. Oh, the ultimate, I couldn't do it. The Austin, I couldn't do it. Look at me now. Level it. Half a pound. Headshot down.
Oh, good to be with you as always. Sunday, the 10th of December. The year is 2023. It is 11:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You have tuned in to episode 453 of the Anik and Florian podcast, presented by DraftKings on the DraftKings Network, DraftKings YouTube channel, audio wherever you ingest your podcasts. And if you have stumbled across us by accident, give us a few minutes. Hopefully, KenFlo will just bring you right in. So happy Sunday morning to you, KenFlo. Obviously, the UFC fight night just expired. We'll get into all of that later in the week. We will have an even more extended UFC 296 preview than you will have today. We'll talk to Macy Barber as well, the UFC women's flyweight contender, coming up on Thursday here on the DraftKings Network. But a lot to get into, of course, Song Yadong and everything else from last night. And then KenFlo, 10 picks from you coming up in about 45 minutes for UFC 296. 6 days out, I'm asking you for 10 selections.
Yeah, thank you for that. It only took me like 3-4 hours to do all the research and watch all the videotape. Well, yeah, I have plenty of time. Plenty of time, no problem. Well, I need points, so actually, I actually do appreciate it.
And you are cannonball.
Not that I even have a chance of catching up to Brian Petrie at this point. But
well, you've shaved the deficit actually over the last several weeks to within striking distance. $1,672 or so, if my math is right. You go 4-1 plus $670, including a 5-unit hitter on Song Yadong. So, could be worse. If you don't know, by the way, and if you are locked into every KenFlo selection, you did text the group that you wanted to take your full 5 units to Song Yadong. That's right. Yeah. When the other fight went south with Sumadarji and Nascimento, I decided to switch it up to Song Yadong, who, I guess proved me right, looked great. And I guess we'll get into that as well. But yeah, he just seemed focused. He seems dialed in and he's putting it all together pretty well. All right, Ray Longo coming up in about 30 minutes and Brian Petrie on the other side of KenFlo making 10 picks for UFC 296. I wanted to just begin with something thematically in terms of the UFC Apex, and then we'll get into Song Yadong and Khalil Rountree Jr. and everybody else. So I caught a couple of these tweets reading an article in Synopsis on MMA Junkie, KenFlo. One of them says, and I think this was Damon Martin, one downside of the UFC Apex is the heckling can get really loud because there's hardly anyone in there. Dan Ige told me he had a guy who constantly barks at him during his fights. It got so loud one time that his opponent's coach told the guy to shut up. And then from this past weekend, Chris Gutierrez just told someone in the crowd, fuck you, whoever said that. Someone replied, I said that. And Chris said, I bet you won't get in here and fight me. So certainly I would hearken back to the COVID-19 days before they even had plexiglass up in front of us. I mean, now that is not a reality. There are some fans in there. But Kenny, it is a unique fight setting. And as I've said repeatedly on these airwaves, with respect, not an ideal one. And you can see another reason why, like the athletes, in my humble opinion, on this level shouldn't have to deal with that.
I've never been there, and it's something I've never considered. Certainly I've been there, but I haven't seen it during a fight, and that is very interesting. As a fighter, you have enough to deal with that guy in front of you, and hearing other people heckle you must be very annoying. And I think as a fighter, you have to do your best to shut that out, or at the very least, ignore it. Don't reply. Bring your attention to that guy that's in front of you, as difficult as it may be. But yeah, that is something I never really considered. And that is a tricky prospect. You could try to do what I just said, but it's very different when you have someone who is heckling you and giving you a tough time, or especially when you're trying to dial in and listen to what your corner has to say. And that's interesting. I wonder what the UFC does with people that are doing that. Can they just kick them out? Should they just kick them out? I wonder, man. That's tricky.
I think it's a pretty exclusive group in terms of who can actually get in there. So hope they can affect some change when it comes to whoever is actually heckling the athletes. But I do think there have to be some people that maybe are paying their way in there. Forgive my ignorance, but if they are, right, I guess it is their right to to cheer and boo within reason. And it's incumbent upon the athlete, obviously, and the coach to sort of be able to compartmentalize that and fight through that and not devote energy to that. To that end, let us get into the fight. And I thought the performance was pretty good overall for Song Yadong. He gets by Chris Gutierrez by unanimous decision. KenFlo 50-45 times 2, 50-44 from the third and dissenting judge. You know, I like Song Yadong on a microphone in his second language after the fact. I like the performance overall, even though maybe there were times when he could have closed the show, but he mixed up the martial arts and he was the better man just a few hours ago.
Yeah, I think this was a solid performance in regards to the evolution of Song as a fighter. I think that it wasn't necessarily the most exciting fight, if I'm being candid, but I do think it was a solid way of advancing your overall mixed martial arts career by the way that he was going out there and executing different techniques from him that we don't typically see, how he was timing takedowns, certain entries, certain counters and things like that. I would have liked to seen a little bit more movement, a little bit more feinting on the part of Song Yadong. That's something that we typically see a little bit more of. So perhaps a little regression there, but huge improvements in regards to his wrestling and how he went about winning rounds. So I think that is also a very important part as far as understanding how to compete like a veteran mixed martial arts fighter. And I think that was also the difference here in this fight between him as an opponent. Just the timing of how he went about things, how he was managing the clock, how he was winning the rounds, I thought was really crucial there.
So on the other side for Chris Gutierrez, if we just could for a minute, you heard Mark Montoya at one point say we sort of need more spinning stuff. And I do worry sometimes, as the amateur MMA mind I may be, when spinning stuff is such a big part of the equation in terms of your offense, right? That as the fights get longer and tougher, I'm just not sure you can always go back to the well with that. And I also feel like his defensive wrestling just wasn't there. I'm not sure the urgency was there for Chris Gutierrez at times. I felt like maybe at times his head wasn't in the game, whether it was the glove grabbing or even on the stool after round 4 when he was talking about the shot to the back of the head. I mean, Mark Montoya always does a good job of centering his pupil. But, I felt like Gutierrez was ready for prime time and maybe just needs a little bit more seasoning overall.
John Anik, shop as attack as usual. No, I agree, man. Listen, I think that there's a difference between what I call a trickster and a universal master. I think the trickster has a bunch of moves that they utilize and, they're looking to use these things to surprise their opponents. And there's a difference between someone who's a universal master that has so much substance to their game, and then they can kind of go out and use these other moves, but they're so well-rounded and so complete as mixed martial artists. That's what kind of separates them at the end of the day than just having a few dangerous weapons here and there, because I don't think those are things that you can rely on consistently over time. Having a few tricks, once you get onto those tricks, it's not a big deal. And throwing something like saying, hey, we need more spinning stuff, you're still kind of throwing the dice there. You have to be able to have that substance to your game where you have solid fundamentals, where then you can kind of fit those into the larger puzzle. And I don't think Gutierrez really had that. So again, I think Mark Montoya is a great coach and things like that. And I think you're also playing to the strengths of your fighter and looking for those certain things. But I don't know. He needed much, much more than that. I think he never really had any kind of countering ability when he was moving backwards. When he was in space and they were just kind of right in front of each other, his leg kicks were doing great. He looked good in that regard. But every time Song Yadong pressed him backwards, he really didn't have any effective countering ability. He just kind of circled away and was letting Song Yadong off the hook there. So I think that really was the difference. The experience factor, how we went about those rounds, I think it can be tough to just rely on a few tricks out there.
Yeah. So Song Yadong's confidence was undeniable. Was it Tom Aspinall who recently put a hand on Sergey Pavlovich's shoulder before their heavyweight title fight, or was it the reciprocal of that? Either way, we had never seen this before, right before the glove touch, right? Both guys, Cody's telling me. So Song Yadong puts a shoulder on Chris Gutierrez, almost as if to say in this instance, hey, man, don't take it personally. I'm about to big brother you, but it was just weird for me to see this visual a second time. But I think Song Yadong's confidence really is undeniable. And he has this super shiny UFC record and has handled a lot of spotlights well, main event spotlight more than once. And I do think he deserves to fight in China for the first time in 4 years, as he said on the microphone. And, I think the Petr Yan fight makes some sense. So congratulations to Song Yadong. And for Chris Gutierrez, you know what I say about these 2-year championship setbacks. If the goal is to be a world champion, this is a 2-year setback for Chris Gutierrez in terms of that initiative. And I do think there are a lot of lessons to be gained from this fight for him. And sometimes there are more talking points on the losing side of things. Like, I wonder when he and Mark Montoya ingest this film, like, these main event opportunities don't come around all that often. And I think they're going to look at this as a fight that really offered up some missed chances. What did you make of the Imanari roll, I believe it's called, out of Chris Gutierrez at the beginning of round 5? Paul Felder obviously didn't like it on a microphone.
Yeah, this guy's reading my mind today. Yeah, I think that that was a major error. And again, to your point earlier about, having these tricks like spinning moves or Imanari rolls, you can't just rely, like in the NFL, you can't rely on Hail Mary passes to get you to win the game. These are things that are kind of emergency situations. But at the same time, like, I don't know, that's never something that I thought he was known for. Maybe he's been working on this for years or something without our knowledge, but I don't know. I've never really seen him jump on submissions like that against people. And if you're going for something like that, to me, it seemed like he was like, screw it. Let me just try this thing as one last ditch effort. And that's never a good decision, especially relatively early in round 5. Like, why aren't you going for, something with substance, like a proper setup for a knockout, or even I would have accepted a flying knee or something over an Imanari roll. Again, this is not, a guy like Ryan Hall or some kind of like true jiu-jitsu specialist.
Yeah.
It's Gutierrez. And I don't think his jiu-jitsu is bad, but I don't think that was a great decision from a strategy standpoint to do that against Song, especially from so far out. So I'm not sure if that was him panicking and giving up on himself, or if that was an authentic attempt at trying to win the fight. I don't know. I didn't love it either.
Sometimes the answer can be, I'm compromised and I'm not trying to knock the fuck out on national television, right? I'm not suggesting that was the answer here, but sometimes, you feel what's coming back your way. And clearly the more consequential shots in this fight were landed by Song Yadong, called by Mike Malott on his Instagram the most talented martial artist he has ever worked with. So we'll see. I mean, I hate to always say to you, like, what's the ceiling on Song Yadong? He's in a ruthless bantamweight division that is now owned by Sean O'Malley. And sometimes I've said to recent bantamweight contenders, I still think Sean O'Malley's a little bit underrated. My biggest question mark for Sean O'Malley, the champion that all these guys are chasing, is his durability. But Kenny, I do think Song Yadong and a lot of these other guys see the champion as a beatable opponent right now in Sean O'Malley. So what do you think loosely is the ceiling for Song Yadong in this 135-pound division?
Yeah, no, I think he has a ton of potential. Obviously, an excellent athlete, knows how to put it all together now.
Yeah, he's a good athlete.
There's no question about it. I just think for him, I would have liked to seen more overall movement consistently throughout his fight. I felt like he got caught watching, trying to set up moves without feinting his way in a little bit. I think if he was able to feint his way in a little bit more, if he was a little more consistent with like that constant perpetual movement, I think he could have hurt Gutierrez even more, and maybe even secured a knockout or TKO in that fight. So, that's my only criticism. But I think overall, it was a good way of leveling up his game, gaining more experience. I thought he showed a very good MMA IQ for the most part. And Gutierrez is a good fighter. He is a good fighter. And anytime you're able to get 25 minutes in against another good fighter, it shows that you're going to elevate your game. So I'm not sure I'm willing to say he's championship material at this point. Certainly contender material. And again, this was another good stepping stone for him to advance his career and gain that experience.
Got to think China's on the UFC calendar in 2024, and Song Yadong figures to factor prominently in that equation. So before we get to the co-main event, KenFlo, when we were doing our sort of sound check before the show, I said, all right, Cody, before we get started, anything I can do to improve the shot? And he said, nothing that won't offend you. And he sort of started, it was like ageism, right? Like he's 30 or 31 at this point, right? when he started with us. I think he was 28. I mean, I can go to the 3 shot if you don't want to see the wrinkles. Did that just work? Yeah, it did. Solo in the studio today, by the way. I need a little break from Boston Anik. I was getting too popular in the YouTube comments. Speaking of which, by the way, we are trying to fine tune this studio. So if you do have not suggestions, but I feel like the audio should be pretty locked in today. So if it's not, please let us know. Audio, of course, is among our primary concerns, and we will continue to work on the video side as well. But let us transition to Khalil Rountree Jr. over Anthony Lionheart Smith. And I don't consider myself the pronunciation police, KenFlo, and we're going to spend more time on the performance, right? But as guys get to this point of their careers, you better get their names right, because when they become world champions, right? Like I oftentimes will tell people, and our friend Big Ron Pellegrino heard me tell the story recently. By the time Brandon Moreno became a UFC champion, I knew how to pronounce Tijuana correctly, right? Yeah. There was a time in my career where I didn't pronounce Guadalajara nor Tijuana correctly. So thankfully, I'm old now, Cody. And by the time these people became champions, I pronounced it correctly. But just in case Khalil Rountree Jr. becomes a UFC champion, we have the audio file for you today. I know you want to say Khalil, but it is Khalil. Let's just hear the man himself say it to be sure.
Khalil Rountree.
Khalil
Rountree.
Khalil Rountree Jr. KenFlo. 5 consecutive wins in the UFC's light heavyweight division. He gets a bonus for his violent TKO of our good friend Anthony Smith. And, Khalil Rountree Jr. is a real threat at 205 pounds. It is all built methodically, systematically to this point. There have been low points and high points. And, good to see this man, inching closer to the top of the MMA world.
Yeah, I thought that this was a critical fight for him at this point of his career, mentally especially. I think there was a lot of pressure on him for this fight. I think this was one of the best opponents that he has ever faced in Anthony Smith. And I thought Anthony Smith looked really good at times during this fight. The power really is the difference, I think here in this fight, because it's not like Anthony Smith wasn't landing some good shots himself. He certainly did that. I think the power, the speed of Khalil is something that very few people have. And it's impressive to watch. Again, in this fight, I think there was a slight regression, in my opinion, in Khalil and how he was moving a little bit. I thought he looked a little stiff to me. I think that he looked a little tense. His posture with his stance was a little, not as efficient that I think I've seen before. I like seeing that kind of constant movement, that looseness. I think that's always going to help a fighter become even faster. And I think it's more confusing, and it gives your opponent a lot more to process. That said, it didn't really matter. I think that his speed and power was throwing Anthony Smith off. He had hurt him a few times, at least 3 times during that fight. On the last go, Khalil showed very good patience and precision and finally taking him out there. It was a nice buildup of techniques. I think sometimes it can be a disservice to a fighter to knock them out really early in a fight. And I think this gave Khalil the ability to gain even more patience, more composure as he gets closer to a potential title shot. So overall, an awesome performance, great result for him. Khalil, one of the nicest guys in the sport, and to see him get a result over a true veteran, an excellent overall mixed martial artist in Anthony Smith was huge for his career.
What'd you have, an IV this morning? Jesus Christ, this guy. I mean, how am I supposed to follow that? What am I possibly supposed to say? Maybe I'll acknowledge the referee, Mark Smith, who was all over it. And how about Khalil Rountree Jr., KenFlo, just holding the fist up in the air?
Yeah.
Like a movie. Like,
it did.
Would you like me to kill a man or pause him? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So sometimes we've talked about Petrie and other fighters maybe playing with their food a little bit before they go in for the kill. I thought you hit on a lot of truths when it came to Khalil Rountree Jr. Nice to win a fight so emphatically and be bonused even when maybe it isn't your best performance. But do you feel like there was anything to that, or maybe just playing the long game a little bit, knowing that Anthony Smith is such a threat and such a credentialed mixed martial artist that, you got to manage risk? Like, I felt like that was part of it too. Is like, Anthony Smith has the potential, like, not go away. And I thought pressuring Anthony Smith really did a good job, especially early in the fight. So, maybe that had Rountree Jr. a little bit off. But yeah, he is poison in the best of ways in a lot of respects.
No question about it. I think he was managing his energy really well in that fight. He was also certainly respecting that opponent in front of him in Anthony Smith. And I think you hit on an important point. I think Anthony Smith was doing great in that fight when he was backing Khalil up and utilizing those long-range weapons. I don't think Anthony Smith fought like a long fighter in this one. And because of that, allowed Khalil to land a lot of those shots as they were kind of going tit for tat during that fight. And, if you have those long range weapons, that kick down the middle to the belly, that long jab, you got to utilize those repeatedly and not let Khalil get in that fight because he's just too damn dangerous. And I think that's where Anthony Smith allowed someone like Khalil to get back in the game. Of course, Anthony Smith took this fight on short notice, so that's not easy to get that thing going and to get a proper game plan and to get your body acclimated to that style of opponent on short notice like that. However, that would be my criticism for Anthony Smith because this fight was within reach. He could have won it.
It is interesting when it comes to some of the recent career decisions for Anthony Lionheart Smith, and certainly some of them have to be financially motivated, right? I'm sure his show money at this stage of his career is pretty good, right? But if memory serves, even the Ryan Spann fight, the rematch happened on relatively short order, him going to Singapore for that one, and this obviously on even shorter notice, but he competed well, and he was scheduled to be on the ESPN desk with us this coming weekend, so I would actually not at all be surprised to see him answer that call as well. So an absolute warrior and a guy coming up on 60 MMA fights is Anthony Smith. So just should be commended for fighting as hard and as well as he did. But man, Khalil Rountree Jr. is just a frightening individual. And as we spin it forward for that man, he came in ranked number 11 in the world. Anthony Smith was number 8. This is going to result in a huge vault for Khalil Rountree Jr. KenFlo, I believe you can see those rankings there populated. Any thoughts on what you would like to see next for Khalil Rountree Jr., who did try to lay the foundation for a fight against the newly minted champion, Alex Pereira? And why would you not, right? For those who maybe want to criticize that, I don't think a title shot is next. I think an eliminator makes a lot of sense. I don't believe Khalil Rountree Jr. has headlined, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Maybe there was one of his fights that turned into a short notice headliner, but I don't believe that he has been the true man on a marquee. Alexander Rakic and Jan Blachowicz were to fight. That is no longer happening. Magomed Ankalaev, number 3 in the world. He's matched up. Yuri Prochazka, number 2 in the world. Jamal Hill on the mend. Yeah, Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker is a main event January 13th. So, I don't know, KenFlo. I mean, I think Khalil Rountree Jr. is an interesting case. I think maybe he bides his time, enjoys his holiday, and, sees how some of these fights play out. Any thoughts on Khalil Rountree Jr. in the not too distant future?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it depends on who he takes on in his next fight. If he's trying to prove that, hey, listen, I can go against a guy who's trying to take me down, maybe he fights someone like a Nikita Krylov and gets the win there. That would be big. I think he's about 1 or 2 fights away, no question about it. I think he's an exciting guy that people want to see fight. I think the UFC like his style, so he has that going for him. Perhaps he can be in a situation where maybe he can be a guy who can fill in on short notice, maybe for a title fight after one fight. But yeah, I think he's 1 or 2 away. Maybe Alexander Rakic, one of those wins would be huge for him. But as you start to get into that top 5, top 4, I think those are some difficult fights for him. But again, another great performance for him to get more experience. But I would say he's probably 2 fights away from maybe getting a title shot.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know that Nikita Krylov is booked right now. I think that makes a shit ton of sense. All right. Let us quickly transition to Nasrat Haqparast, Ray Longo coming up here in about 3 minutes or so. So Nasrat Haqparast, you guys are in my head now with this cement head thing with respect to Jamie Malarkey. So now every time I think of the guy, I'm thinking cement head, and somehow the cement block didn't hold up. Nasrat Haqparast by equilibrium bender at 144 of round 1. KenFlo, your thoughts on Haqparast, man, forged by adversity professionally and personally, and now on a real run in a division that makes it hard to do just that. What'd you make of Haqparast getting a bonus for his troubles against Jamie Malarkey?
You're telling me that wasn't Kelvin Gastelum going back-to-back weeks getting it done there? All right. No, they look a lot alike. No, listen, Haqparast looked great, man. I think this was a result that he really needed caught Malarkey. Malarkey does get hit. You can't hurt him. But going in there with that killer instinct and taking him out when he needed to, I think was huge. He landed a lot of crazy shots. I thought actually that it was Keith Peterson who was the referee at the time. I thought he gave Malarkey a chance. I mean, a few chances to get back into that fight, but he, probably could have stopped it even earlier. But, that's how you get it done, man. Hawk Perez is one of those guys that TriStar was really excited about for a long time. They were very excited with his potential. And I think that was one of those fights that was a clean performance for him. You get it done like that. That's a big result. Hawk Perez has won some fights, have lost some fights, but a lot of those going to decision. So I think this will be a big motivator for him. Getting a win over a dangerous guy in Malarkey, because he is definitely dangerous.
So I was going to tell you guys about what is available at DraftKings Sportsbook for UFC 296, but I'm going to table that, right? Because could you imagine, KenFlo, if I left the star of the show, Ray Longo, in the waiting room while I labored through a 60-second commercial spot? So we'll table that for a little bit and welcome in the great Raymond Peter Longo.
My guys.
There he is.
How we doing? How we doing, guys?
Happy Sunday. We're easy like Sunday morning. How are you, Raymond?
Oh, Lionel Richie. I like it. Very good. I got a very expensive cup of coffee today, so I'm happy.
Talk to me about your coffee.
No, it tastes great.
Oh, look at that Longo mug.
Oh, the mug.
Good. Oh, no. I'm sorry. It wasn't the coffee that was expensive. It was this fucking mug that
makes the coffee taste better. Laura Sanko said so.
I mean, let me shout out Ian Slosser. I'm sure he's going to fucking be happy to hear his name on the podcast, but thanks for the coffee cup. I got my students now buying me coffee cups. Is that what it's coming down to?
Ian Slosser went to johnanik.com and bought Ray Longo a Ray Longo Minute coffee mug, and that's what you're drinking out of today? Is that what's going on? Yeah.
That's what's going on, baby. That's it.
Well, sometimes I just got to clear it up for the people that don't watch the show, that just listen to the day ones, of course, on the audio side.
No, I thought everybody watches the show. And I'm not sure, but Ian told me this is the mug Laura Sanko drank out of.
Yes, it is.
So because I know it's tasting a little better now. So
there you go.
Let me try it one more time. Wait, I'm in the middle of a bid here. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's good. All right, go ahead, John. Let's do it.
All right. So in the nature of clarity, we need to clear something up from last week. So you were invited to the World MMA Awards coming up this Thursday, December 14th. You are twice nominated, right? Coach of the Year. Sorry. Definitely not analyst of the year, right? I mean, come on. Even the Minuteman would acknowledge that. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's still quite. No, listen, you got to know your place in this world. Kenny's top dog, man.
I don't know what drugs he ingested before the program today. I think it was a liquid IV or something.
He's on fire.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
Yeah. It's worse though. When he's in a bad mood and on fire, it's worse. Like I could take good mood on fire, KenFlo, but that's just in a bad mood, putting everybody in their place. All right. So in the nature of clarity, Ray. So you're nominated for Coach of the Year. You're nominated for the Anik and Florian podcast. We were hoping you were going to come to Las Vegas, but there is this movie role. Word on the street is that you might even be bullied into this movie role that is happening on the East Coast of the United States and not in Las Vegas.
No.
Alas, you will not be with us this week. And I guess if somehow you win this Coach of the Year award, you have somebody to walk up and accept on your behalf.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I think Fravolo was going to do, but now he's not going because I'm not going.
Oh, no.
So, there'll be somebody out there.
Okay.
So if I win, maybe I'll fly out. Maybe I could still fly out. I don't know.
When are you shooting this movie? Can you give us that answer?
No, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
Can't do that.
I'll give it to you after the show.
All right, this is unbelievable how top secret this is. And hopefully, bully was not the wrong verb for me to be using. We have a lot to get to with you today, Raymond.
Let's do it,
Should we move on? Yeah. I know you prefer to talk about MMA than yourself.
Without a doubt.
Even speaking like a guy whose face is on his coffee mug.
Salud, John Anik.
All right, so I guess we can continue with our UFC Fight Night recap. I thought the night's biggest winner was Khalil Rountree Jr. KenFlo, which you make of the budding light heavyweight contender.
That Going to Kenny or me?
You.
Oh, I'm going to you. I mean,
let me tell you, that is some scary ass power this guy's walking around with.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that guy hitting a normal guy out on the street. I think he'd knock him off his feet. I don't know where he's got. I mean, the power looks like it's just, and he was fast, man. His counters were quick. And Lionheart's no joke, man. I mean, that was scary power. That was Mike Tyson-esque in the early days. You know what I mean? Where whoever he hit was going. So I think he's on a roll. Was he on a? He's got 5 win. He's on a 5-win streak.
Yeah.
I tell you what, man. It looks like his head's in the right spot. He's at peace with himself and then. I mean, he is slinging bombs, man. Even the fight they showed as the highlight. Who he hit? He almost poor Dorcas on the ground. I mean, that last swing that missed him, it might have killed him. I mean, I'm telling you, it looks like freakish power to me, man. Really,
I agree.
And he seems like a nice guy. So, and hats off to John Wood too. He looks like he's got a good guy there, man. So great job. And Deb, that guy's he hits you, he's gonna hurt you. He's that type of guy.
There's no doubt he's the nicest of the nice, Khalil Rountree Jr. And Kenny, real quick, in terms of that Mike Tyson comparison, yes, at times Rountree Jr. is swinging from the hips with everything behind it. Like some of his misses look fatal, potentially fatal.
Yeah.
Like when he misses, it's like, dude, thank God, like, because Anthony Smith definitely ain't working with us next week if that one actually led it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, John, really good point, because that's really I'm with you. Like, and I see this shit every day, but some of those misses, you're going, holy crap, man. If that thing would have landed, like either his fist is breaking or his head is breaking, like one or the other. I mean, I don't even know how his hands are holding up to that. I mean, whoever's wrapping his hands is doing a good job, because there's some heavy power behind that.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I feel like he turned a corner where he really was willing to unleash that power. I think that like maybe the nice guy took over a little bit, or maybe he wasn't as confident as he is now. But whatever it was, there was a switch that happened a few years ago where he started to really believe in that power, and it's been paying off for him for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, really looks like a dangerous guy. And plus, he took a couple of good shots. He stayed calm. He was relaxed. Yep. He did take a little bit, and he didn't even flinch. He looks like he's just in the zone right now. That's what it looks like to me. This guy is zoned out. He's in a good spot when he goes in there. He's in a good spot when he comes out of there. And it just, John, like you did say it, some of those misses were like sometimes that happens in the gym where a guy throws like a vicious head kick and the guy ducks, and I'm like, like even to this day, I'm like, holy crap, like I didn't see it coming, and I'm just glad the guy ducked. But yeah, I feel your sentiments exactly.
5 straight wins for Khalil Rountree Jr. Now you just got to continue to improve this version, right? Try to be in the best shape of your life. Because even though this division doesn't necessarily require you to be like the 5-tool player at the top that maybe some others do, right? With respect to the light heavyweight division, like now it's all in front of you. We'll see what you can do. And speaking of which, in terms of Tim Elliott stepping up against Sumu Darji here, Ray, right? Thematically, bigger picture, congratulations to Tim, the ultimate veteran, right? Not at all in shape. Laura Sanko, his former teammate, saying that he had like 2 practices for this fight. And Kenny, I certainly want your thoughts on this as well. But, Tim Elliott, the father of one, getting a $50,000 bonus, right? Like he's going into his holiday. There just aren't that many guys who are willing and able to step up. And there are just so many opportunities out there for athletes, Ray, that are willing to, sort of put their careers and lives on the line on short notice.
Yeah, look, Tim Elliott's one of those guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, he definitely has championship qualities. There's no question about it. I mean, I think when he fought Demetrius, he was close to maybe choking him out, or, close doesn't count for anything. But I'm saying you could see that this kid could have been a champion, and some of these guys hit a point where it just clicks. They have that aha moment where I'm just going in and fighting. Like it's not about like he reframed what he thinks about fighting, and you could see it in his performance. To step on a short notice like that and have a performance like that is absolutely fantastic. But I think anybody who's followed Tim Elliott sees what a talented kid this guy's been for years. But, you know some of the backstories. If you're having problems at home, that could really affect you really, really bad with the fighting. I mean, I don't think there's anything worse for even me as a trainer or a guy as a fighter if he's fighting with his girlfriend during the camp. You're almost worthless at that point. And whatever he's gone through, it looks like he's coming out the other side. I think he's a super dangerous guy. He's got the talent. And now it looks like he's accepted I'll go in, I'll fight anytime, any place. I think the guy's always going to be dangerous. I don't even care what his record is. He's a dangerous guy, and I'm happy for him. It looks like he's a good guy, and he did great, man. I think he's, but Kenny, I don't know. I mean, he's always been good. I mean, he's just finds a way to lose sometimes. You know what I mean? You feel like something he's looking good and then he just checks out, but if he doesn't check out and he changes the way he's looking at things, he's just as talented as anybody else in that division. He could be a champion easily.
No question about it. I think also he's one of the rare fighters that you can't possibly 100% prepare for. He's so unique and so really unorthodox. Good. I mean, I've never seen a guy actually try to double risk control a guy during a fight. Like he help block. He'll do unusual things that you're like, you do not see it in sparring. So just his movement, I think, is unusual. And it's cool to kind of see that his own spin on the way that he fights. It was really cool. And I agree. And it's interesting because I have a buddy of mine, one of my students, one of my fighters who's starting off his career, who hopefully will move pro next year, recently trained with Tim Elliott. He happened to be Tim Elliott came in and he's like, we did not spar. He's like, we just fought. And he goes, Tim Elliott wasn't even breathing. And he wasn't really getting ready for a fight, but he told me that Tim Elliott's one of those guys that doesn't matter what's going on. He's always in shape, it seems, or has just unusual conditioning where he's just always ready to rock. And to see that, what he said after the fight, I think he proved it. He's like, I'm ready to go next week. Whatever you need me for a late last minute replacement, I'm willing to hop in there. And I think that attitude helps because you have to have that balance of not putting pressure on yourself when you fight. And it seemed like he's almost ready, despite everything that he is going on outside of the cage, of putting everything aside and almost not caring and just kind of focusing on the fight, and you could see his skills coming out. Some things he does, I think, are very risky, but he's fun to watch. And that is Tim Elliott in there with his own spin on fighting, enjoying himself, trying to go out there and still has that passion for fighting and winning fights. Yeah, and then Kenny, the UFC loves risky. They love that. You know what I mean? And he's willing, he's willing to do it week after week. I think it was heartfelt. I think he would go right back in there next week, 100%. I thought he was good. Some of these guys that have been around for a while and they stay healthy enough to last that long, to have these moments. Like I'm saying, Rountree's there too. Rountree's been around for a while too. Now, I don't think as long as Tim Elliott, but these guys, when something hits, man, because fighting is very, very mental. And whatever it is, I think these two guys are examples. I think their post-fight speeches prove it. Even Rountree calling out Alex Pereira. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy too. But you know what? Who the fuck doesn't want to see that fight? I'm right with him. That fight doesn't go past a round and a half. Impossible.
Yeah.
Right. That's
right, Ray. Like for a lot of guys, it doesn't click. For most fighters, it doesn't click and it goes the other way. But I think for a lot of athletes, right? Nasrat Haqparast, clearly it clicked when you thought, oh, maybe he's on the fringe of maybe getting cut at some point in time. And now look at him. And for Khalil Rountree Jr., in terms of the longevity, Ray, that was his 7th light heavyweight knockout. Only 2 men have more. They're Chuck Liddell and Shogun Rua with 10 and 8.
Crazy.
Right? So,
look at that company.
Khalil Rountree Jr. in some good company, to be sure. Anything for us on the main event before we get to UFC 296 and some of your guys? It was Song Yadong over Chris Gutierrez. Main event was just okay for me, Ray. Any thoughts on the bantamweight main event?
It looked like Gutierrez. I mean, he seems like a nice guy. It looks like he was having a little bit of a breakdown in there for some reason. And I thought, even though the scores were lopsided, it definitely was a close fight, right? Going into maybe the 4th, 5th, he started getting controlled on the floor. But I mean,
if easy to score.
But you could see with the headbutt thing, he was so focused on the headbutt. I mean, not a headbutt, the guy hit me behind the head. Well, shit happens. You know what I mean? So you could see there was he got a little frantic in there, and I don't think he ever came back from that. But not the most exciting. It was exciting. Who got knocked out really bad that grabbed Chris Tognone's leg?
Oh, so Steve Garcia, Mean Machine, got Melchizedek Costa out of there with that knockout. And then, the referee having to showcase his wrestling defense.
Very, very disappointed in the ref. He grabbed the fence. Did you see that when the guy was trying to take him down? Oh, he was holding the fence.
Why are people lauding Chris Tognone's takedown defense if he grabbed the fence?
I think he grabbed the fence, John. I'll be honest. We got to go back and look at that. But
he should have had a point taken away.
I think somebody should go to his house and take a point away today.
Yeah.
No, great.
I don't think that was the sound effect I was going for. God damn it.
It worked, though.
No, that was good, John. That was good. But hats off to Chris Togno. He did a great job in that fight. But imagine that you're getting tackled by you're in a fight. I think he was holding the fence and he was going for a switch, I think. I think the guy was right on the money. So hats off to him. Nice guy, too.
All right. I don't know if I want to bury the lead here. I think I'm just going to get to UFC 296. Leon Edwards and Colby Covington are fighting in about 6 days, Raymond. You see, I'm like bracing on my seat right now. I'm very excited. Let's just go to the wide shot for this conversation for a second.
Yeah.
Right. So right now, Leon Edwards is the betting favorite. He made good on his first defense of the title against Kamaru Usman, now defending against Colby Covington. He thinks stylistically there are some similarities, just a little bit more output coming from Colby Covington. What say you about the undisputed welterweight championship this weekend?
I agree with that, what he said. I think Leon's going to get it done. When was the last time Colby fought?
March 2022.
March 2022. Yeah, it's a long layoff. So I don't know. I think Edwards is I think those fights with Kamaru really couldn't have prepared him any better for a fight like this. So he kind of, but he's right, though. It's not that Colby's more of a grinder. Yeah, I don't know. I'm picking Edwards if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, no, we'll take a prediction.
Yeah, I'm picking Edwards in that fight. Although, I just think that grinding style gets old as you start getting older or you're inactive. I'm sure he's been training the right way, but I think Edwards is the fresher guy, and he could do some damage with his hands and feet. I'm just going with Edwards. I think he's got the experience from the Usman fights. And he knows exactly what to expect from. I don't think there's any secrets in what's coming. It's can you handle that pressure? And hopefully he's training, not hopefully, whoever wins, but training the right way for that. And I think he'll be fine.
Kenny, you had a lot of unique stylistic challenges in your career. I'm wondering if you ever fought like the cardio guy. And I talked about this earlier last week, just in preparation of UFC 296, doing some media, just in terms of the sort of mind alter that is fighting Colby Covington, right? Obviously, Leon could get him out of there early, but knowing that Colby's probably not going to go away, in theory, doesn't that bring out your best in training, knowing that you kind of, for this particular challenge, have to be in the best shape of your life?
Not always, but it should. When you have a guy that is not going to go away like that, a guy who is mentally tough, a guy that is always going to be in tip-top shape, you can't expect him to get tired. And you have to kind of expect that first round is going to look exactly like the fifth round, maybe even worse. Like that's what needs to be in a fighter's mentality. And I think that Leon Edwards, with all of his experience, fully understands that. Kamaru Usman, I'm not sure has that same kind of pacing, that crazy pace that Colby Covington has. So I'm curious to see how Edwards is able to diffuse that pressure and how well he's able to withstand that and how mentally tough he really is, because that's one of those things where you're going to be in a gut check. If you go against a tough opponent, but it's a manageable pace, you could figure it out, But when you have a guy like when I fought Clay Guida, I had it in my head that he was not going to go away. He was going to be in my face. He was going to push, and I was probably going to be tired during that fight or the majority of that fight. And that's the kind of energy that Colby Covington brings, which is why I think it's such an interesting fight. And it's also very different of having someone who is trying to utilize that with wrestling in particular, when you are not a wrestler by trade. So very, very interesting fight. And Colby Covington's conditioning has always been a weapon for him, similar to like a knockout shot or a submission. I think it's that good.
Yeah. I agree with. I do agree with Kenny. I just think. I just think that grinding style, there comes a point where it just slows down just a hair. Like I agree with you. Like that first round, you have to expect that for the whole fight. But as time goes on, that first round, it doesn't happen all the time. You know what I mean? I just haven't seen the guy fight. I mean, what has he got? A year and a half layoff?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years in March. Yeah.
I mean, I tell you that's where I think the difference is to me. But I've been wrong with that a million times. Just guys taking fights too early, they end up winning, but they end up losing the next fight. So sometimes it takes a while, but he's got that style. He's got that grinding style. We'll see. That first round is going to be critical. I think we're going to get a good look at how that fight's going to play out. It's either going to be a long night for somebody, or it's going to be a long night for either one of them. Whoever can implement their game plan for sure. If Colby can't get that fight to the floor, I think he gets tuned up really bad. But if he can, get some control time and, grind it out like that, then he's going to have a good night.
All right, some other things. Rapid fire here for Ray Longo on UFC 296. Let him clear his throat first, though, people.
Oh, my Lord. This sound stuff is crazy.
So Shavkat Rakhmonov is 17-0, favored perhaps prohibitively, according to some, over your guy, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen Thompson, a plus 390 underdog this weekend. Your thoughts on WB, who will be 41 in February.
Woo.
Taking on the man who's all the rage in the welterweight division. Now we're going with 2 nasal clears before this answer better be good. This answer better be good. You getting a haircut, by the way? I did done pull me out of the fight coming up. You get a haircut before you
Monday I have to. I'm getting a haircut. Jesus, Mary, the guy's killing me today, Kenny.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. This guy's tough on me, I just want you to be able to just stun them, right? Your eyes bring everybody in, but it'd be nice if they could see your ears too.
Yeah.
What do you got for us on Stephen Thompson? 41 in February. Age is just a number, right, Cody? Cody was fucking banging on me earlier about my age. I think I look okay, 45.
How old are you?
I'm 45.
Wow. Getting up there.
Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, actually the only fighter, KenFlo, to walk up to my twin brother who has hair down to his rear end and say to Jay, dude, I love, John, what you've done with your hair, man. It looks great. And I guess I would pardon Stephen Thompson, right? Because everybody's going to Turkey these days, right? Clay Guida, Eric Nixick, and everybody else going to get new hair. So maybe he thought that I was cut from that cloth. I'm not. I just shave my head all the time, because I want to look tough.
Wait, update me on that. Who's going to Turkey for new hair?
Clay Guida.
There've been a lot of people. I mean,
really?
Yeah.
So
I think Zach Al Hassan went too, if you want to get some depth to the conversation.
Oh, shit, man. I'd like to fluff up my hair. I want to fluff up my hair a little bit. I'm going.
Yeah, I guess.
No, you don't need it.
I want a total wig. I want a total wig up here. Yeah, I got bald spots.
You have a bald spot on the back?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Really?
It's been there for about 15 years, though.
You got a lot of hair, though, right?
It hasn't gone anywhere, but I'm going to go to Turkey. That sounds good. Wait, hold on. Nixick's got hair on his head, no?
I believe he went for a treatment and was very public about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if I go, I'll be public too. I'm not hiding no secrets. But
it is amazing though, the 777 wings you got on the side of your ears right now.
Oh no, this is bad. No, it's actually really bad. I tried combing it down today too.
You did, right?
More saliva. You need more saliva, Ray.
Yeah.
The Minutemen think I'm banging on you.
No.
And yet here you are. If you're audio only, this man just licked his palm and is trying to slick back his hair on the DraftKings network. This is the content that
I have a hat on right now.
Yeah. I got to start wearing a hat. But what do we got? Listen, tall order.
No, I got a few other things, right? I have you until noon. Do I not?
Yeah. Tall order for one.
Says I got 6 more minutes, so I can.
Yeah. Let's go rapid fire. Okay. Wonder Boy, this is a tall order at 41 to take on a monster like this. Look, I still think standing up, if the fight stays standing, Wonder Boy, he's got tricky enough stuff to where, if you're not used to it, he could catch you. Obviously, he's got to keep that fight standing, and we'll see what. I'm not even trying to pronounce this guy's name, but Shavkat. We'll see what Shavkat's. Is he going to try to take the fight to the floor? Will he try to test the standing, see if he's the alpha male there? I think the longer that fight stands, even though it's still a tall order, Wonder Boy's got a shot at getting it done.
So let me ask you this, and this dovetails with one of our two Anik and Florian podcast poll questions this week. Of the three massive betting favorites on pay-per-view, right? Shavkat Rakhmonov being one of them, Paddy Pimblett, and Ian Machado Gary. In whom are you most confident to win? And I guess reciprocally, you could ask if you like any of these underdogs. Kenny's about to make 10 picks coming up here in 5 minutes, but I'll ask you, Ray, like Tony Ferguson is fighting Paddy Pimblett, right? The odds makers suggest Tony has a better chance to win than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Is it fair for me to ask you, like, which of those two guys do you think is more live as an underdog this weekend? Because they both seemingly on paper would be up against it.
Well, what are the odds on that? I mean, it's actually not fair because I love Wonder Boy, but so I'm never gonna.
So WB right now is plus 390. Tony Ferguson is plus 285. So Wonder Boy is the biggest underdog on the main card.
No, I don't agree with that. I think Ferguson should be a bigger underdog than Wonder Boy.
Okay, looks like you got Anthony Delemy fighting Keith Speed on Fight Pass December 15th, Pumi Nakuda fighting Hunter. Yeah. Is it Starner or Sterner or Storner? Let's say Starner on the same card. So you getting your haircut? Is that why for CFFC? For the cameras?
Yeah, for CFFC.
Right. But not for the Anik Florian podcast. You can get your haircut.
Oh my God, this guy's brutal. No, I meant to get it cut last week. It just didn't happen.
Right. Any thoughts on Anthony or Pumi or anything?
Yeah, but these guys are looking great. They had great camps. Pumi's jumping in at the last minute. And we also have Armando Gaethje fighting for a title. And there might be one other guy on the card we're just waiting to see who's an absolute beast coming up. Wait till you see this kid. We have yet to even get him a fight because nobody's accepted. But he's another Georgian kid.
Oh, wow.
He's a Georgian who lives in that I think it's different because he's in that Russian-occupied part of Georgia. But what a sweet kid. He's super talented, like crazy talented. And he's like 22, 23. So I think he's undefeated, like 3-0. And we're just trying to get him a fight. So hopefully he'll fight up a weight class if the guy accepts.
All right, last thing before we let you go. Aljamain Sterling seemingly, if his content is to be believed, he's punting on the Max Holloway fight. He says that maybe Max is in pursuit or in thought about other bigger opportunities, potentially if Ilya Topuria can get past Alexander Volkanovski, perhaps there's something else. Justin Gaethje, I don't know. But Aljo wants Calvin Kattar. What are your thoughts on that New York versus Boston clash that, if nothing else, would give this show a whole lot of content?
Well, the Holloway fight's not going to happen. That I could tell you.
Care to elaborate or no?
I think they got different. My understanding is they have some big plans for Holloway coming down the pipe. So that fight's not going to happen. I don't know what the UFC is going to do with him. He wants the Kattar fight, which will be a crazy fight. I really respect Kattar's stand-up. I think I've always been a big fan of Calvin Kattar. But, it's like when I'm talking to Aljo, it's like he wants the fights that if he wins, he gets he moves forward towards like a title shot. So I think he's at a spot in his career. And that's what I kind of was talking to him about. You got a couple of ways, which ways you want to go with this. But I think in his heart, he wants to fight the best of the best. And that's what he's aiming to do. So I said you could go the money route, take a money fight, maybe a little easier fight, or you go for a tough fight against a guy like Kattar, but that the win will mean way more than to a lesser opponent. So that's Aljo's mentality, which I think is great. But he's still enjoying his 200 pounds that he's walking around. So he's got. I think if he fights Kattar, it might have to be a 55 at this point.
So much of life, though, is about timing, but leverage. And Aljamain Sterling, in theory, would have a lot of leverage as a former champion. I would think that fight would be hugely appetizing for someone like Calvin Kattar, perennial featherweight contender, to fight a former champion, not unlike the Davison-Figueiredo fight has immediate appeal for a lot of guys at 135 pounds. So I think Aljamain Sterling and Calvin Kattar has a lot of sense. Boston versus New York, I think behind it would be very good.
That's a very respectful call out. Everybody respects Calvin Kattar. It's not there's absolutely no disrespect at all with that, but he's got to pick somebody that makes sense. And then the UFC's got to agree with, what he's trying to align himself with too. And that's a big part of the puzzle too. We don't know what the UFC has planned for him, but as far as I'm concerned, Aljo has nothing to prove at this point. I think he should take the fights that really interest him so he gets motivated. And he's in the history books, so I think it's all icing on the cake from here.
Well, Ian Machado Gary would suggest to you that if a fighter signs on the dotted line to fight him, that's an insult in and of itself to suggest that you think you can beat that fighter, right? So, Aljo seems to think he can beat Calvin Kattar. I mean, you want this all just rooted in ultimate respect. How about a little New York versus Boston? I think we need to up the ante,
Maybe we should make them go to.
What's that?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, if we put them both in a batting cage, I'm definitely going with Calvin Kattar for sure.
Oh yeah.
If we put him in a batting cage, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ray, what does the rest of your Sunday hold, my friend? What is the rest of your Sunday?
I got to run down to the gym, do a couple of privates, do some conditioning with the guys, and that's it. The guys that are fighting, I think a couple of guys are coming in today, so we'll see what we have on the agenda when we get down there.
All right, buddy. Well, we will miss you in Las Vegas. Hopefully someone is there to accept any hardware that comes your way on your behalf, and have a great day and a better evening. We'll talk to you next week.
And let's talk before that. When are you leaving for Vegas?
My cell phone's always open. I know you don't like to impart upon me bad news, right? So you said you were going to call me back, right? The call back never came. You broke the news to Cody that you weren't going to come to Vegas. It's fine.
Kenny, you hit a point in time where you call the people that pick up the goddamn phone, though. That's the problem.
Exactly.
It's not like I don't got time to freaking get the voicemail. I got to sit there wait for the
voicemail. That's what John does. Send the voicemail. Call you back.
Let the record show, at least last week, if you're only as good as your last phone call, it was a one-way street of me calling Longo. But we'll talk to you next week, huh?
Pick up the phone later. I'm calling you. I'll take you on a couple of things. Take it easy, guys.
Right.
Love you, baby. Bye.
All right, so we're taping into the NFL window today. So if you think there is a chance in hell I'm taking his phone call on an NFL Sunday, there is absolutely no way. So he'll try Cody maybe thereafter. All right, 10 predictions on UFC 296 coming up in about a minute. Something special is going down live on pay-per-view this weekend. It is UFC 296. And DraftKings Sportsbook is helping you come out on top in this epic encounter between Colby Covington and the champ Leon Edwards. So right now, Leon Rocky Edwards, the betting favorite, minus 140 or so on DraftKings Sportsbook. Covington plus 120 on the comeback. All sorts of proposition bets available as well for what will be the last UFC card of 2023. So now is the time to get in on the action with us. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code AFPOD. New customers get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, with code AFPOD. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/MMA for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right. Last pay-per-view of the year. I'm excited. You're excited. She's excited. They are excited. Let's get to the main event challenge.
It's the main event challenge. Anik.
The time is most definitely now.
Florian.
I finish fights. I'm going to do everything possible to win.
The main event challenge. The John Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
Brian, it's nice to see you. Big week coming up for the men in brown and the women in brown, obviously on Monday, UPS, my man. So yes. I'm having you guys make 10 selections today, 6 days out. Not ideal for a handicapper. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I switch on my own podcast. I record on Wednesday. I post on Thursday, and I did switch my Khalil Rountree pick on mine. I didn't text the group chat because I'm like, you know what? Let's run the underdog, see if Kenny can get some momentum here. But I did switch my Khalil Rountree, but I got banged up. I got a little stomach some bad barbecue. So I was in bed watching fights last night for the first time, I think, in ever. It was actually quite cozy. It was nice, but I only had 3 bets, so I wasn't painting the board like I usually do.
Brian, what's the most amount of fights that you've bet on? Like, have you ever done a 10 fight? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So a lot of people like to do the lotto parlays. They just bet every fight parlay, see if they can win, hit that lotto.
Yeah.
I don't do that, but let's just say every fight I'm betting some kind of action. It could be multiple props. It could be money line.
Right.
I rarely lay off fights at all. I have some kind of spot where I like on every fight. So if there's 14 fights, I could do 24 bets in a card. You know what I mean?
Wow.
They're smaller bets. They're not as pronounced as a full unit. But I'm usually painting the board.
So Kenny, I can't bet on combat sports, right? But just to give you some lens into my world, right? So last Saturday, I had a total of 30 wagers for No, I mean, 30 wagers for minus $832, right? And then on Sunday, I had 33 wagers for plus $993. So we cleaned up all of that Saturday mess with the NFL, but 63 bets on the weekend.
Yeah.
John Anik, professional gambler, part-time commentator.
This guy's killing it.
This is how I see it.
It's interesting because when I talk to my kids about passion, or when I think about a career change or a different directive when it comes to my broadcasting career, certainly you could argue what I am most passionate about is betting on sports, and the fact that we're bleeding past 1 p.m. Eastern to tape this UFC 296 preview doesn't sit particularly well with me. All right, so I do want to discuss this with you guys before we get to the pronunciation of the week and the 10 selections for UFC 296. Just very quickly, because this is our last main event challenge of 2023. I want you guys in our audience to think about a revamped main event challenge for 2024. And largely, I kind of want to give you guys a $1,500 budget every week to make your bets, right? And I think we're moving in that direction, right? I want to maybe figure out a way for you guys to bet progressively so that if you are up or down, right, that maybe you would be able to bet more than 1,500 to make it more realistic in terms of your actual bankroll. So an exercise like this might require you to make 10 picks, and we would keep your overall win-loss record for some sort of challenge. But overall, when you're thinking to 2024, and our listeners and viewers are as well, you're probably going to get a budget of like $2,000 and might even be able to do something, KenFlo, as simple as a $2,000 straight wager if you're so inclined. So
I like this. It's kind of like F1 where they change the rules every year. So you kind of have to change your strategy and your approach. I like this, John.
Bri, I know you're living and breathing this stuff. What do you think?
I get DMs all the time about people with great ideas and stuff about how to change it because they love the segment. The one guy said, "Hey, listen, BP, it was a voice note. He goes, BP, give Kenny a shot. Let him do 5-unit wax on all the fights. Let him just go over 5 units every time." That was a little bit of a joke, but no, I love that idea. Give us a budget, keep us in the budget, and more picks, and then the picks add for something, but also your dollar value adds for something as well. Because like I said, we're getting, all these fights we pick, we're getting hit on like we bet all 10 fights full units, which isn't realistic, which you've been bringing up all year, Johnny. So I kind of like that.
All right, so Team Florian had another big week, 4-1 plus $670. Team Petrie 3-2, but you did lose your 5-unit hitter, so minus 825 or so. The swing overall was like $1,495. Florian within striking distance, about $1,700 down. And as we come up on UFC 296, we do have a pronunciation of the week. And Bri, I feel kind of bad throwing this your way because you seem a little bit under the weather.
A little banged up, but I'm good. I got some caffeine pumping through me, Jay.
All right. So we talked earlier about Khalil and not Khalil Rountree Jr. on the program, because in case this guy becomes a world champion, we need him to be Khalil because that's the way he says his name. So we got a guy nicknamed Raw Dog fighting for the world title this weekend, and we're just trying to do a public service announcement here on the Anik and Florian podcast. So who is the name of the world flyweight title challenger taking on Alexandre Pantoja this weekend?
I would pronounce this man's name Brandon Royval.
Oh, it's just like butter. I mean, let's hear him say it. You sounded great today, though.
Brandon Raw Dog Royval. Brandon Raw Dog Royval.
So, KenFlo, we're just looking for that first syllable to be emphasized. That's all we're really looking for today, right? Royval instead of Royval, right?
I like it.
All right. Brandon Royval fighting Alexandre Pantoja. 8 picks, though, to get to before we get to the title fights. And let us begin our last UFC card of 2023 with our first selection, an early prelim in the light heavyweight division. 15th ranked Dustin Jacoby, -245. Number 14, Alonzo Menafield is +200. So Menafield has only lost once in his last 7 fights. Bry, your thoughts on him here? A +200 underdog against the former Glory kickboxer Dustin Jacoby.
Yeah, we got 10 fights, and I don't want to spend all time. I want to get some of the meat and potatoes. No disrespect to any fighters if I cut them short. Alonzo Menafield, big, powerful brute. Won by submission last time out, which is interesting. He's evolving. His cardio is getting better. He's big power, but I feel like he's limited. Dustin Jacoby, I think, is a sniper. I think he's great on the feet. His movement's great. His cardio is good as well. I think leg kicks and distance are going to play a factor in here. I don't see Jacoby finishing Menafield. I see a decision happening here. So give me Dustin Jacoby. I'm fairly confident in that pick.
All right, Dustin Jacoby right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, -245. So Menafield trying to close out the year with another win here. He's coming off that bonus-winning knockout of Kennedy Nzechukwu. Sneaky big fight here at 205 pounds, KenFlo. It's interesting when you look at Menafield, right? The only loss in the last couple of years was William Knight, of all people. Any value for you here on Menafield +200, or are you aligned with Bry?
Yeah, I do see some value. I think that his best path to victory is via the takedown, grounded pound, kind of getting position and stuff like that. But Jacoby has been very difficult to kind of hold down if you do get him down. What concerns me a little bit is sometimes the efficiency of Menafield. I do think he can win this fight, but I think Jacoby's just going to be a little cleaner, a little sharper on the feet. And as the fight goes on, I think I give him a better chance of not only winning the fight, but potentially finishing the fight. So I'm with Brian here. I like Jacoby as well.
And by the way, it was Jacoby and not Menafield who had that knockout of Kennedy Nzechukwu. Alonzo Menafield and Kennedy Nzechukwu, longtime training partners at Fortis MMA. All right, next prelim for us can be seen on ESPN2 in the States at flyweight. Casey O'Neill, -198. Ariane Lipski, +164. Anik Florian podcast supporter and listener, Casey O'Neill, by the way, about a 2-1 favorite here. Trying to sort of re-announce herself as a divisional contender following the first loss of her career to Jennifer Maia back in March. Your thoughts on her here against the streaking queen of violence, Ariane Lipski?
Yeah, Lipski's won 3 or 4. She kind of came in the UFC with a little bit of hype. She's a beautiful girl, and it never really added up. Now she's 3 or 4, and she's looking dangerous. And then Casey O'Neill, I'm a huge fan of. Casey O'Neill came in the UFC a little bit raw, but had immense talent, immense heart, blew her knee out, came back against her toughest competition in Jennifer Maia, and that was a fucking scrap. Those females threw down. Casey O'Neill just fell a little bit behind, but again, coming off an injury, almost a year off, fighting high-level competition like Jennifer Maia, that's a tall task to ask, and it was a very close fight. I love Casey O'Neill in this spot. I thought she'd be a higher number. Lipski is on a little bit of a run here. Like I said, 3 out of 4, but I just think Casey O'Neill is better everywhere. Aggression, I like a finish for Casey O'Neill in this as well. I think she's mean in there. I think she's tough and mean. Maybe like a ground and pound finish in there for Casey O'Neill.
Injuries have been part of the narrative on Casey O'Neill, of course. Even had a fight book with Viviane Araujo in September. She was forced to pull out of that one. KenFlo Lipski 2-0 in 2023. She trained extensively earlier this year with Amanda Nunes exclusively at that Lioness studio. Your thoughts on her here against the 2-1 favorite, Casey O'Neill?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I did see improvements in her striking. I think that if this fight happened maybe 3 fights ago, I would say that Casey O'Neill is the better fighter everywhere. I think Ariane kind of stepped it up. I think she's a little bit more technical on the feet at this standpoint, perhaps. But like Brian said, I like the pacing. I like the aggression of O'Neill. And I think her best path to victory, not to say that she can't hurt Lipski on the feet, but I think her best path to victory is taking this fight to the ground and just making it ugly and chaotic and bringing that aggression and overwhelming her on the ground with her pacing and all that ground and pound. So, yeah, I like O'Neill here as well. I think there's some decent value on Lipski if she can keep this on the feet. And stop those takedowns. I think that's where it can get interesting. It just comes down to how she's able to manage the clock and how well she's able to get back to her feet. But I do see O'Neill causing a lot of problems for her. And I think we're going to see a better performance than the one we saw against Maia because I actually picked O'Neill in that fight. I thought she was going to pull that one off. Yep. Maybe she wasn't as confident with, coming off that injury, but I think we see a different O'Neill here and a better O'Neill. So give me Casey.
All right, we are aligned on the chalk thus far. Next prelim, former UFC bantamweight champion Cody Garbrandt, the minus 205 favorite against Brian Boom Kelleher, who comes back plus 170. So Kelleher, Brian, had neck surgery earlier this year, fighting for the first time since June of 2022 when he lost a fight to Mario Bautista. Garbrandt was to face Bautista this past August, but Cody, no love, forced to pull out of that one. Now he takes on Brian Kelleher. Your thoughts on this one, BP, at 135 pounds?
Oh, every time I talk about Cody Garbrandt, it just hurts, right? Because one of my all-time favorite performances is him versus Dominic Cruz. That was one of the best performances I've ever seen. Everything was on point from that night. And then he kind of let it go a little bit. And then now he's trying to find out what he wants to do. The Trevin Jones fight, his last time out, he won. It was a little bit boring. He mixed in wrestling, which I think is smart. You can't go out there and slang and bang the whole time. Cody is incredibly athletic, fast. It's right here. It's right here what's the problem. He gets hit, drops his hands, and goes crazy, right? He needs to be able to wrangle that. And you got Brian Kelleher, he was a dangerous guy. I don't think he has the biggest power in the world. Really good guillotine choke, coming off a really bad neck injury. I love Brian Kelleher. I think he's the best rapper on the UFC roster. I mean, John, tell me if I'm wrong. Do you think
Dog Nasty Bryce Mitchell is the best?
Him and Bryce Mitchell, and they're both
Bryce
on the
Mitchell's
card.
good too. I was going to compare him to Tyron Woodley, who's no longer in the UFC, but I'll beat your ass if Tyron Woodley's the famous song.
Dude, I'll beat your ass from T Wood was good. I don't even have it now. That was a good song. But no, Sterling can rap, but Bryce Mitchell is the
I've never heard Aljo
lyricist on the UFC roster, and he's also fighting this week. This is how I get in trouble, Brian.
Yeah, you get in trouble. I'm sorry. I pivoted here.
Radar, but I'm a man of truth, and you put that in my face. But but you're telling me that Kelleher can spit it as well, huh?
I like Kelleher. He usually does like a weekly bar thing. He posts on Twitter or whatever like that. Good guy, good fighter. Everything in my body wants me to take Brian Kelleher because I feel like Brian Kelleher could clip Cody, but I just can't. My Ohio instincts, my Ohio blood won't betray Cody. I still think if he has a good night, he's a problem for anyone. I'm glad he's not fucking with 125 anymore. That was a disaster in my opinion. It took him like 6 months to get there, killed his body. Give me Cody Garbrandt. I know a lot of people are going to be on Kelleher. I like Cody Garbrandt in the spot.
KenFlo, Cody Garbrandt minus 205, Brian Kelleher plus 170. Who do you love?
Yeah, an interesting one here. Brian, I agree. It's nuts that Cody Garbrandt is both responsible for perhaps the most genius performance of all time when he beat Dominic Cruz to perhaps maybe one of the silliest performances from a strategy standpoint in the one against TJ Dillashaw. We were like, wait a sec. How is this the same person? And, obviously Cody has all the talent in the world. When you're talking about it, we've talked about it a lot, John, A-class athlete, Cody is right there. There's no question about that. But sometimes the decision-making during a fight of getting overly emotional, of getting hit and going, oh, well, guess what? I'm going to do this. And then getting caught with something himself or getting taken down at inopportune times. It's tough to rely on Cody, and know that he's going to bring his best self every single time out. And, from playing football for a long time to fighting for a long time, I do worry about that chin at times. However, I think he's going to be good here. I think he does need to mix in some wrestling here. He needs to be smart with how he trades with Brian Kelleher. I think that's where maybe he struggles a little bit of when he needs to be in front of someone and when he should attack and when he should kind of retreat or counter. So I think that there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding there, which is crazy because he was so brilliant against someone like Dominic Cruz in that fight. So, yeah, I like Cody here. I think he gets it done. There's no question that he's the better fighter. He's maybe the better fighter against 99% of people in that division. How he shows up and competes, though, is a different story. But give me Cody Garbrandt here. I've been a big fan of his. Some of his approaches and strategies have been questionable, but I think he's able to get it done and get the win over a dangerous Kelleher.
All right, moving on now to the women's bantamweight division. It will crown a new champion in January. But first, 5th-ranked Irene Aldana, minus 198. 9th-ranked Khalil Rountree, plus 164. So Aldana Bry, the recent world title challenger, back for the first time since she faced Amanda Nunes in June. Khalil Rountree on the other side coming off a split win over Yana Santos July 1st. Got any action on this one, Kit?
Yeah, I like Aldana. I like her big. I mean, listen, before the Amanda Nunes fight, she knocked out 3 of her 4 opponents. Like this is a really dangerous woman. Tall, lanky, good boxing, good head kick. she laid a complete fucking egg. And Nunes, I don't know who that fighter was that showed up. It was not the Irene Aldana that we have seen fight before. And then you got Rosa, who is a very measured fighter, likes to fight at her own pace. She's going to smother you. She's going to clinch you against the cage. She's going to try to slow you down. I think if Aldana can keep range, she's going to pick Rosa apart here. I like Aldana. I like the number as well. And I'm going to play it by finish.
KenFlo, when I sent you guys the lines, I guess Aldana was like minus 205, now down to minus 198, moving a little bit towards Khalil Rountree, but BP pretty convicted on the side of the Mexican. What are your thoughts?
You want me to go deep on this fight? You want me to break it down completely, guys? Spend 10 to 15 minutes? Is that what you want? Not going to happen. Listen, it's going to be, I think Aldana jabs her face off. I think that's what happens here. I think she keeps her on the outside. She's just a better athlete. She's longer. She's rangier. I think she gives Rosa a really tough time on the outside. I don't see Rosa being that effective from the clinch either. I think Aldana comes out hot and gets the win.
All right, next fight for us, featured prelim, featherweight division, Bryce Mitchell, minus 192, Josh Emmett, plus 160. So Thug Nasty, the best rapper in the UFC, stepping in on less than 2 weeks' notice, replacing Giga Chikadze, Bry. Mm-hmm. So Emmett has lost both of his fights this year, last of which an absolute bludgeoning at the hands of Ilia Topuria. That was a 5-round main event in June. It was the fight of the night. Emmett just showcasing, as usual, his otherworldly toughness. But now instead of facing the striker Chikadze, he gets the grappler Mitchell. I'd imagine there were several fights presented to Emmett. Mm-hmm. He lands on Mitchell, who is a 2-1 favorite to beat him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a lot of rumors, people taking it. Diego Lopez name got thrown out there, and then we end up with Bryce Mitchell, which is a big name, and for a big card, it fits. Interesting matchup because Josh Emmett is the wrestler. He has the wrestling base, but we've never really seen him get taken down and put on his back until the Topuria fight. And that's all Bryce Mitchell wants to do. I doubted Bryce Mitchell because he looked bad against Topuria and then looked great against Inige. Use that wrestling, use the aggressiveness. He is a tough kid. He's constantly working on his skills. And this is the first time I think Bryce Mitchell's ever really taken something on short notice. He's typically a guy that waits months and he doesn't jump on fights early. So he must be in shape. He must be ready to go. And I like that. However, pulling a Kenny Florian, however, I never get these guys right. I can never predict them right. So what the fuck am I going to do taking the favorite here? Give me Josh Emmett. I like his power. If he can stop Bryce Mitchell's takedown, it's going to be a problem because Josh Emmett's not quitting. 3 rounds, you got to kill Josh Emmett. I don't think Bryce Mitchell has the firepower or the submissions capabilities to do that. He can lay on him, get a 3-round decision, sure, but kill or be killed, fight stopping power. You go Josh Emmett. You go dog hunting. Let's go.
KenFlo, Bryce Mitchell. Recently, resounding win over Dan Ige. That was not that long ago, September 23rd. He improves to 16-1. Only career loss came against Ilia Topuria. He was kind of violently ill going into that fight with respect to the still undefeated Ilia Topuria. Your thoughts on Bryce Mitchell, minus 192, despite the short notice here against the former title challenger, Josh Emmett?
You know, John, we have a sick Brian Petrie here. You know, he's a little under the weather. I was hoping it would take away from his sharpness, his eye, his research, something. But no, he's onto it, John. You know, we're kind of going all favorites here, and I think we're going to see a shift here. I'm looking for some underdog bets myself, and I like this one as well. I think that Josh Emmett has a lot of power, and I do think if he ends up on his back in this fight, Bryce Mitchell can finish it, right? But I do think it's going to be a difficult thing to take down Emmett and keep him down. I like Emmett here. I think his wrestling should be good enough to keep it on the feet, and when you have a guy with that kind of power like Emmett, I think he's always a threat. He does have a ton of experience. My only question mark is how does he recover and come back physically and mentally from that last beating of Topuria? Because we certainly have seen it before where a guy isn't quite the same after something like that. So that's the question mark for me. But when I see an underdog bet, I see the odds like this for Emmett, I'll take the underdog here. No disrespect to Bryce Mitchell, who's an awesome fighter. I just like Emmett here in this spot. It's a tough matchup for Mitchell, I think.
All right, KenFlo and Brian Petrie both like the under-dick Josh Emmett. Is that what you said, KenFlo? The under-dick?
Did I say under-dick?
I saw John smile when Kenny said that. I was like, here we go.
Under-dick, huh? That's what I said.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Go underdog.
I'll have to do some investigation for any Freudian slips. That's weird. Underdog. What am I doing?
To the pay-per-view Main card, UFC 296. I like to do that once a show with my family downstairs. We're in the master bedroom right now. There's your wide shot if you're on the video side. But I like to do that once a show just to keep my family and this new puppy on their respective toes. Ian Machado Gary, Brian, minus 360. Vicente Luque, plus 285. So Machado Gary, undefeated, 13-0. Beat Neil Magny in Boston back in August. Now he draws the most credentialed opponent of his career to date, Vicente Luque, who has fought 20 times in the UFC. Which way you going here, favorite or underdog, Brian Petrie?
I mean, does everybody just be talking about Ian Gary lately? What's going on? Cody and I have had conversations. He's got an interesting life. It's not my life, not something I would live, but I do not pass judgment on others. Ian Gary does his thing. It is what it is. He's a fantastic fighter. That's all we can suggest from this. I messaged my guy, Chris Curtis, and I said, Ian Gary's been kicked out of 3 gyms. When you train with him, was he a fucking dick? He was the nicest kid, humble kid, and they worked well together. It was only 2 days though, right? So you got all these stories. He got knocked out by Leon. Someone knocked him out at Kill Cliff. Vicente Luque submitted him at Kill Cliff, which Ian Gary has fully admitted. But this is a good fight for Ian Gary. This is exactly what he needs. Vicente Luque, last time he fought a really dangerous striker in Jeff Neal, he didn't look the same. He got rocked twice, got beat up all over the cage. That's uncharacteristic of a guy with an iron chin. Could these wars be catching up with him? He rebounded well against RDA and looked pretty good, fought smart, took RDA down. I look for him to take Ian Gary down in this fight since he had success submitting Ian Gary in practice. I know practice is practice. We're talking about practice, man. I know it's practice, but I like Ian Gary a lot. I'm a fan of the guy. I think he's going to be fighting for a title soon. I know all the outside noise. People might not like him. People are really excited about what Colby's going to say at the press conference if they have an interaction. The press conference is going to be dynamite this week, but I think Ian Gary is a legit dude with legit skills. He's long, he's rangy, he's powerful, he's smart. I wish and I'm hoping that the training camp he has now, which I believe is in Brazil, hopefully that is like permanent. I don't love a young guy running around too much. I want him to have a little bit of a home base. And when you're not fighting, then you can go explore and see other talent. But maybe that might be too much for him right now, being a young man. He's only 26, but I like Ian Gary. The number's hefty, though. I will say that 360. Woo, that's a little chunky for your boy. But throw him in a parlay. Don't even think about it. Give me Ian Gary.
KenFlo, Ian Gary minus 360. Vicente Luque plus 285. Your thoughts?
Very, very interesting fight here. And I think the press conference should be a little interesting with Ian Gary if he's in it. Man, that's going to be. Yeah, bring your popcorn. I think everyone's going to be trying to take a shot there. So Ian Gary better have them hands up. But listen, I think Ian is very talented. I think he's the better striker here. But I like that approach from Vicente Luque in his last fight. And I couldn't agree more with Brian. I think that's got to be his path here. Try to put Gary on his back. Utilize his striking for sure. But be more of a counter striker, maybe even back him up a little bit more. Try to get Ian Gary on his bike, pin him up against the cage, look for those takedowns there where you can utilize that jiu-jitsu advantage. I'm sure Ian Gary is working on that. Of course, having that intel, having trained with someone like Luque is going to help him here. But I see value, plus 285 for Vicente Luque. I don't think it goes well for him if he's not able to get a takedown. Ian will either maybe get a TKO or outpoint him for a decision win. But I think there's enough value for me and Vicente Luque to go his way. So give me the Brazilian.
Wow.
All right, Vicente Luque plus 285. If you want my thoughts on Ian Machado Gary, they'll be up on MMA Fighting later this week. Hopefully not in the clickbait variety, but largely I think it's just noise. And I have a lot of respect for Ian and his wife. I think they're both very intelligent people. All right. At lightweight, Paddy Pimblett minus 360, same price against Tony Ferguson plus 285. So Pimblett underwent surgery following his last win over Jared Gordon. Brian, that was exactly 1 year ago today. Ferguson on the other side will be 40 in February. He's the former interim lightweight champion. 12 successive wins have given way to 6 consecutive losses. But a lot of people fancy him a live underdog here. A lot of people feel like this is a winnable fight against Paddy Pimblett. We need your prediction. Pimblett minus 360, Ferguson plus 285.
So I saw Paddy Pimblett fight live in Vegas, and it was a very underwhelming performance against Jared Gordon. However, the walkout was electric. The minute he walked out, I was looking for a fucking Paddy wig. Let me buy that off your head for $20, whatever it was. The guy has something, right? And had like 3 different ankle surgeries, coming back. He's fighting a guy in Tony Ferguson who I think he's lost a little bit. The whole David Goggins thing, and I respect David Goggins a lot, what he does. But I don't think Tony really needs to work on his cardio and his mental. I think those were pretty good. He needed to work on his skills. And obviously this could be smoke and mirrors, but is he working on his takedown offense, which has been non-existent? Has he been working on his defense, which has been non-existent? You know, he still hits hard. He still has those thundering power. He's got big old hands. He can hit you, but you know, Patty's this young breed who likes to get the fight to the ground, who smothers you on top. He's very good when the fight goes to the ground, and Tony's kind of stagnant. You know, he plays kind of a half-ass rubber guard, doesn't really work to get up. You know, maybe we'll try for a submission here there because it's worked in the past. I don't think it's going to work here. I see why people like Tony Ferguson, the value low over Patty. Patty has a lot of haters out there. I don't know if he's ever going to be world champ, but for this fight, in this fight particular, I think he is going to dominate Tony Ferguson, and I think he's going to submit Tony Ferguson in or around second or third round. Give me Patty the Batty, baby.
KenFlo, Patty the Batty, Pimblett minus 360 right now. The favorite on DraftKings Sportsbook, Tony Ferguson plus 285. Who do you like?
You know, I think that when you see what promotions have done over the years, especially with the UFC, and you see a kind of narrative like this, where one guy is set to kind of streak upwards and another guy who has been on a steady decline, you kind of see what's happening. One guy is trying to get put over, and typically the UFC knows exactly what they're doing when they put together these fights like this. And it usually goes well for the new breed of fighter. That guy who is starting to, you know, go up on that trajectory. And Patty is a very popular fighter. The UFC knows what they're doing. And for Tony, what concerns me most is just his movement. I have never, and no one should ever question the heart of a Tony Ferguson. I don't think you should ever question even his conditioning. This guy is not going to quit. And I couldn't agree more, Brian. It was it was a weird decision to see him out there training with David Goggins. You know, maybe there was a reason to do it. Maybe because he lost a certain passion, perhaps, maybe. But still, for me, I would have liked to seen some kind of switch up with maybe like his striking approach and footwork and movement stuff. Whether that is neurological, like we've kind of discussed in the past, or whether that is kind of Tony and the way that he moves, which is unorthodox, admittedly. But I was concerned with the way that he's moving out there. And I think for Patty, who is not necessarily known as the best striker in the world, I think this is setting him up to look pretty good on the feet if it stays on the feet. I also think that the biggest concern for me is Bobby Green submitting Tony Ferguson. I think Patty can certainly do the same. And, you know, unfortunately for Tony, he's been on a decline, and I don't really love that. So I'm taking Patty here.
All right, next up, featured bout on pay-per-view at welterweight, Shavkat Rakhmonov minus 520, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson plus 390. Wonderboy, of course, was to face Michel Pereira in Salt Lake City in July. He did not accept the fight after the weight miss by Pereira. Rakhmonov, some people think right now he's the best welterweight in the world. He's 17-0 last time out. He got a good test from Jeff Neal. He passed it. KenFlo will lead with you here. That was at UFC 285 in March. Rakhmonov, a huge favorite coming up this weekend against Stephen Thompson.
He is a huge favorite. And watching his last fight against Jeff Neal, it solidified the fact that this guy has an iron chin, and when it gets tough, he's going to be right there in your face. So for me, that was a great sign. What wasn't a great sign, though, was the fact that he was, I don't want to say easy to hit, but he is hittable. And when you have a guy in Wonderboy who was able to find the mark, who was known as not necessarily a knockout striker, but he's known as a precise striker, a tricky striker. I don't think he's as fast right now at 41 than when he first came into the UFC, certainly. I think we've seen a little bit of a drop-off. If we see a big drop-off, that's when I go, Wonderboy kind of maybe should stop. I don't see that kind of decline at this stage of the game. Sometimes I worry about maybe the passion or the work ethic, but if you face a guy like Rakhmonov, you got to assume that, you know, that's going to get you going. This is something that needs to motivate you. So I'm curious from just a fan standpoint, how Wonderboy looks in this fight. You know, when I'm making a decision on something like this, I try to not let my fanboy get too involved here. But maybe it is getting involved a little bit too much, because I like Wonderboy here. I think that I think he's going to be able to be a tricky striker out there. I don't like his odds if he gets if he gets put on his back against Rachmanov, who has some excellent ground and pound and seems to not tire. Rachmanov is the easy pick, but I don't always go with the easy pick. I need some points as well. I think Wonder Boy needs to use his tricky game to get it done, to confuse Rachmanov. So give me Wonder Boy.
I like it. Wonder Boy will be 41 in February. Rachmanov, 29 years of age. A lot of people would even just look at the age as a jumping off point for the handicap. KenFlo likes the value on Wonder Boy plus 390. Rachmanov minus 520. Brian Petrie, who do you have?
Yeah, Rachmanov is the easy pick, and I'm going the easy route, KenFlo. Give me the easy pick here. No, I love your prediction. I love the play on Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy, if you stand up with Wonder Boy, I mean, you look and watch the Jeff Neal fight. That's the last fighter, and Kevin Holland, who truly just stood up with him, and he dominates. He's really, really good. His muscles, his quick muscles are still there. He's still fast. He's still explosive. But when you mix in takedowns like Bilal did, like Gilbert Burns did, it just shuts him down. You know what I mean? He's not as active. He doesn't throw many strikes. And this is going to be really an IQ test for me for Shavkat Rachmanov, who I think he's going to be champion. But if he goes out there and goes, I'm a slang and bang with Steve Wonderboy Thompson, what's the worst can happen? Well, you're going to get knocked out or you're going to lose the decision, right? So I want to see him fight smart, mix in his takedowns, get Steve Wonderboy uncomfortable, take over the fight that way. I know he's got this crazy finish record, like all his wins are by finish. Hopefully that's not playing in his head because, he could finish, but just get the win, right? Don't do anything fancy. Don't get in your own way. But this feels like a trap for sure. Can he avoid the trap? I think I'm stepping right the fuck in it. But give me Shavkat Rachmanov.
All right, that brings us to the two title fights. First up, the co-main event for the undisputed UFC flyweight title. Alexandre Pantoja, minus 175. Brandon Royval, plus 145. As most of you probably know, this is a rematch of a fight won by the champion Pantoja. That was August of 2021. Pantoja won by submission in round 2. Royval since has won 3 in a row. And that has set up the world title fight coming up this weekend. Brian Petrie, I'm very intrigued to see which way you guys are going on this one. Pantoja, relatively short price for his first title defense, minus 175 against Brandon Royval.
So I was talking about earlier how Cody's performance over Dom Cruz, one of my favorite. Pantoja over Moreno is currently on that list for me as well. The heart he displayed, the shots he took, he looked like he was out, cardio done, rebounds, makes adjustments and realizes I can take this guy down and hold him down a little bit. Won a close fight, won the title, had that amazing post-fight speech. I'm a fan. And I've never really, he's flown under my radar. I'm a fan. I've rewatched the first fight. Royval has definitely changed a little bit. He's kind of a wild man. He came out doing crazy shit, got a little tired, got finished. That's kind of what he used to do. He has now stepped back a little bit, goes, I don't need to be that wild man because I have the length, I have the skills. I don't need to go crazy, right? I'm not going to change. He still goes crazy a little bit. I'm not going to change myself completely, but I'm not going to do balls to the walls and get gassed out. I'm going to pace myself and pick my spots, and I think he's looked really good. I love his nickname too, Raw Dog. Imagine the UFC champ's nickname Raw Dog. I mean, they might have to change that. I mean, I know Chad Mendez's nickname used to be Money Shot, and they're like, no, we got to change that there. But when I look at this fight, I think Pantoja is just a little bit cleaner everywhere. I think Royval is dangerous. I think Royval can finish this fight more so than maybe Pantoja. Pantoja can submit him, but I think on the feet and all that crazy stuff, you're looking at Royval, and I would play Royval by some kind of finish. I think you're going to get a nice number, but for me, it's and still Pantoja.
KenFlo, co-main event at UFC 296 for the undisputed flyweight title. Pantoja or Royval for you?
It's going to be exciting while it lasts. And I think, Brian, spot on once again. I think that Royval's best bet is to kind of just bring chaos and look for the finish from the get-go. Pantoja's just so consistent, though. Even in the fights that he has lost in the past, you're never seeing him getting smoked. Like, he's never been finished over the course of his career. Look at the level of competition that he's faced in his last few fights. Brandon Moreno, Alex Perez, Brandon Royval again, Manel Kape. I mean, these are excellent fighters. I don't see this changing, and I also see an even better Pantoja than the one we saw against Brandon Moreno. I think this guy is only going to get better. He proved a lot in that performance against Moreno. just his ability to be smart throughout a fight, make good decisions, show heart, know how to adjust. I think that's only going to propel him that much more in this one. He has too much skill everywhere. I like Moreno. I like Pantoja here. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get the win. I also want to put +5 units on Pantoja. Let's go, baby.
5 units on Pantoja at -175 for KenFlo. All right. Some breaking news of this hour, and the secret is now out. It comes out at a perfect time. I've been holding on to this for several weeks. So Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, will indeed weigh in as the backup for the undisputed welterweight title fight in Las Vegas between Leon Edwards and Colby Covington. Deservedly doesn't even begin to describe it. So that is very good news, certainly for anyone who has followed this show or the Anik Florian Podcast YouTube channel. Congratulations to Bilal Muhammad, because that's a big deal. That's several weeks ago. In fact, he was given that news. All right. Main event, Bri, for the undisputed UFC welterweight championship. Leon Edwards -148. Colby Covington +124. Covington back for the first time since the win over Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. That was UFC 272. March 2022. Only man to beat Colby Covington dating to 2015, Kamaru Usman, the man that Edwards twice has beaten recently. Now he's got Covington in the crosshairs. Which way you going, BP, on the main event?
Love this main event to close the year. Both these guys are different. Leon's quiet and Colby runs his mouth, and people love Colby for that. I'm mixed on Colby, if I'm being honest with you. I think sometimes he gets ahead of his skis, but he's trying to sell. He's trying to make money. Do what you got to do. I love 170 pounds right now. I know 55, 35 are the hot. 170 pounds got some killers, man. We got some real killers at welterweight, and I can't wait for the future. You look at Leon Edwards, and this is a guy who I did not think would be Kamaru Usman. The first fight was very impressive. John, your call was unbelievable. We got to mention that. But he was losing the whole fight, right? But the will and the determination was amazing on display. His corner work. The second fight was very close, but that's where he really kind of separated himself. Like, okay, I know I'm better than this guy. First fight was maybe a little lack of confidence because he had lost to him before. I should say second fight, not first fight. First title fight. The third title fight was like, oh, I got this guy. I know how to beat him. He's not going to take me down. I know how to defend, and I'm going to piece him up on the feet. And I think that's what he has to do with Colby. The problem is Colby just doesn't stop moving forward, right? His defense isn't something worldly, but you got a sharpshooter in Leon Edwards who tends to kind of just sharpshoot. I would like to see a little more volume out of Leon. That left hand is a piston. The head kicks are going to keep Colby off balance. Colby, when he takes you down, he doesn't keep you down, right? Leon's hard to take down and hard to hold down, right? I think Leon can take Colby down as well. Let's see Colby off his back. That'd be interesting. He took down Usman and mounted him right away. There's a lot of possibilities this fight can happen. But I got a parlay cooking here. It's already placed. Wow. I'm going to go and still champion for Leon Edwards and still champion Alexander Pantoja, the and still champ parlay on DraftKings Sportsbook +165. It's a gorgeous number. Both the champs are a little low, but the main event is going to be, I think it's going to be fireworks. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, but I like Rocky here, man. I think he's the real deal.
And you're the real deal. Brian Petrie at Brian Petrie MMA giving us 10 selections today. And you may wonder why I'm outroing you now, because KenFlo's prediction on the main event is actually coming up on our episode later this week on Thursday. His final selection of the year, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. But Brian, we appreciate the time. Yeah. Outstanding contributions all year. We will have you as part of our award show coming up on Monday, January 1st. But this does it for the predictions this year. Revamped main event challenge for 2024. You're going to factor prominently in all of that. But great stuff this year. Yeah. And if you do hold on to beat KenFlo, we'll be sure to congratulate you here in about 10 days or so. Kid.
Let me say one thing before I go, guys. This is my last show of the year, because of the main event challenge. This is a dream come true. I was a day one listener thinking I could do this. Now I'm doing it. And it's unbelievable, surreal. This was my first full year doing it. It's been about 18 months to 20 months. We had the Krause situation before. And this has just changed my life. The Nashville, getting to go backstage, meeting all these great people, and getting to work with the best and being validated by the best, and you and Kenny and Cody. It literally every day it makes me feel great. What it makes me even feel better is that the guys that I look up to are better human beings. They're better friends, and I can really rely on that. So thank you guys so much for changing my life and giving me this opportunity. And to the moon next year, baby. Let's go.
You're the man, BP.
Thank you, buddy. You're a huge part of the show, and your words definitely mean a lot. And Yeah, man, buckle up. Big things coming up, hopefully in 2024. Have a great holiday, and we will talk to you soon, brother. Enjoy the pay-per-view.
Thank you. See you guys.
By the way, MMA junkie Farah Hanoun breaking the news on Bilal Muhammad away and is the backup at UFC 296. All right, we got to get on out of here. Don't forget, Bilal Muhammad, Jason Anik, remember the show. I actually think they're going to be live on location from Las Vegas. That can be ingested on the Anik and Florian Podcast YouTube channel. Anik Squared, of course, me and Jay with some NFL picks coming up later this week. JohnAnik.com, all of the merchandise is there. Check our social channels for promo codes. I think Holiday actually still works as well. KennyFlorianMartialArts.com, Argus Integrated Defense, and we are back with you coming up this Thursday. We will talk to Macy Barber, we'll talk to Hayden Iverson, and we will get you KenFlo's main event prediction for UFC 296, Edwards versus Covington in Las Vegas. Thank you to our guests, Ray Longo and Brian Petrie. Our executive producers, Cody Merrow. Thank you all for listening, for subscribing. Tell your friends. We appreciate all the support. JohnAnik.com for the merchandise for KenFlo. I'm John Anik. We will talk to you on Thursday, if not sooner. Until then, yo fucking live.
Are you sure we're not in the Boston Garden? Now every time I start a verse, I break at least 3 commandments. Kinda like Pluto, because I never planned it. I'm outlandish in the way they make Apaches look like they own ranches. It's the art of war. Your blood's the only color on the canvas. And I don't mean it like a thug sense of how you can get got. Fuck being gangsta, I'm hip-hop. You got it every time you walk in the label. The A&R's like nodded. Immune to your shit, cause I circle, dotted. Body heat is toxic. We got a beat, I don't gotta speak. Opposites start to think psychically, make the speakers speak elitistly. Off their high horse, make an ass of their views. Your DJ must not know the alphabet, forgetting his cues. My favorite DJ got those and 6 extra L's to abuse. Esoteric John P. and I'm the new kid school. I'm Radar Ellis, nice to meet you. Show busting my styles. Egocentric, ego tripping with frequent flyer smiles.
DJ wants to get at the bird. He gets at the bird. And Bird takes the shot.
You wanna set it on